Hello, and welcome to our inaugural podcast of Superhuman Training, Playfully Embodying the New Spiritual Renaissance. I'm here with my wonderful partner in Thrive, Melissa Orion.
Yes, and I'm here with Sir Colby Collins.
And we are doing this podcast as an introduction to the amazing, life-changing work that is becoming aware of how our world is radically changing and how a new paradigm for life based in love and harmony and sharing and connection to our perception of divinity within us and around us is really coming about in a big way now. And part of the work that is mine and Melissa's to do is to be an advocate and an example and an embodiment of this new way of life. And so the content of this ongoing podcast that will eventually also become documentary shows is to playfully experiment and document and explore what living the new paradigm or the new spiritual renaissance really means and looks like in every facet of our life.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Colby. I'm really excited to be here and be present with you in this ongoing conversation, as it really is the conversation of our lives. And you and I have been close for so many years now, and we've known that we needed to share the conversations that we were having with more people than just the lucky few that get to go on the walks with us or hang out when we live together. But what I feel like is so crucial right now is that we let our listeners, our friends, our fans, our people that are really close to us and our reality just aware of how invested in this dialogue we are. And I think that that's what this particular episode gets to be about. A little bit about you, I'd like to start with.
Absolutely, Mom.
Mr. Colby Collins is someone that has the power to be in the flow. I think a lot of people say get out of your own way. Well, Colby doesn't even think that way. He gets in the way, and he gets in the flow to be fully present and aware of what is truly around us. And in that, he's brought forth so much for me to mirror and resonate and move my own visions and dreams forward. In his work as a coach and in his work as a channeler, he's just inadvertently in my life moved me in directions that are profound. And I am so happy to share this moment and these living moments with him and to share him with you guys, because honestly, him in your life as your friend and your ally is going to absolutely change your life. So thank you, Colby.
Aw, thank you. Very sweet. Similarly, actually, you have inspired me of what it is like to, it's not just about being on all the time, it's about really living and embodying the big picture, the dream of not only where we're going, but actually how you live that in every day now. And Melissa is one of the most prolific artists, visionary artists, and cultural creative engineers that I've ever met, probably the most prolific that I know, in that she has the gift of what we call quintessence, and it's that ability to tune into the absolute essential value of any system or model or way of being that is most reflective of our innate divine nature, which is always resourced, always available, always full, always overflowing, always sharing, always resourced, always abundant. And I have absolutely no doubts that everything that we're doing is coming into fruition in the most beautiful way. And so our first topic that we really want to talk about and to introduce why we're here and why we're doing this in the context of the big vision and communities out in the world that are being founded to live in this new paradigm way, and in the context of all of Melissa's art and in my self-awareness coaching work, to what is this new spiritual renaissance and what does it mean for you?
Great question. And I think our overall thesis is that by honing in on what that new cultural renaissance is and that new spiritual renaissance, then we can find that, like you mentioned, the word quintessent, that quintessent seed inside of that is its most vital, pure essence of harmony, and then extrapolate on that and let that move us towards systems that are efficient in our utilization of the tools and the gifts that each one of us possess. So we kind of have an overall question that we have chosen to be the question in the probe. Is it possible to create a world that works for everyone? And we have an idea that it is not only possible, but it is probable, and that it is built into our DNA, if you will, built into the science and the functions of our human form, that we will live in a harmonious state on this planet. And it's just in that allowing ourselves to see those tools and keys that are possibly locked inside of us and let them open up and unfurl. So, Colby, let's get started.
Well, we got to begin where we seem to be are.
Oh, okay, we seem to be here?
We seem to be
in a hotel room?
We're in the hotel room again. But as a collective society, we are given a story, when we're in childhood.
What a fabulous gift.
A story, yes, of who we are, but also a story or a myth, if you will, of the world that we're living in and where we're going. I've noticed that I'm a big Hollywood movie buff and fan, and I particularly like stories that are set in the future, whether it be near future, distant future. And something that I've noticed in all of, especially the big Hollywood blockbusters, is that every movie set in the future, while it is fantastically technologically advanced, the culture and society is bleak. What they call it dystopian, right? And so that we're rushing towards this future where all of our resources are used up, and that people devolve. Is that right? Devolve? That's not right.
Devolve.
Devolve, yes.
I divulge.
We divulge and devolve into even more greed, even more scarcity, and even more violence as we are fighting over the remaining resources and seeing these catastrophic earth events that are the result of our refusal to shift systems and patterns of how we're engaging with the earth and our resources from the earth. And so my sense every time I've seen a movie like that is that it can't be true. It isn't true. It's not true for me. And so but I was looking at, this must be true for the story of the majority of people, because Hollywood and their imperative to make as big a profit as possible, they're wanting to speak to the largest audience possible. And so those movies to me are a snapshot of the value system that especially Americans, but perhaps most people in the world, are invested in about what's even possible. We've asked that question, do you believe it's possible to create a world that works for everyone? And people laugh and scoff it off, like, no way, if that was possible, then people not as good as me, or people that don't deserve, people that are on government assistance, or substance abuse addicts, or disabled people, or whatever it may be, single mothers, that they're not as good,
or as worthy.
And they're not as worthy of having all the wealth and all of that. And there's such a dog eat dog mentality of like, well, you're on your own, and it's up to you to step on whoever you got to step on, or do whatever it's got to take for you to get to the version of success that feels good enough for you, which of course for most people is never enough and never gets there. And so to even conceive of this question of, is it really possible to create a world that works for everyone? It points to an opportunity for a radical shift in our value system, our internal value system of, again, who we are and what's possible for us to engage and participate and contribute to others in this world. And so in the work that I do, it's about first investigating our investments in our pain, And then through that, having an opportunity to take responsibility for how I'm actually choosing everything in my life, even though a lot of it I say I don't want. And when I can get to the awareness of seeing what part of me actually does want that thing or things that I say that I don't, then I come into the field of possibility of actually shifting my value system. In other words, I get to say what matters to me and how much it matters and why. And that I can then playfully experiment with putting my energy investment, my time, my focus onto something that I say I really do care about a lot, and exploring what a shift in value occurs then, and to then witness how that shift in value and my consistent investment in that value brings different results into my reality and into our reality. And so if we can get into a place of conception, perhaps at first,
just perhaps,
that your life could actually work for you in every way. And it doesn't mean that the role of pain or challenge isn't still valid, but that we reorient our perspective and relationship to pain specifically, or to tests and challenges, so that it propels our living into our greatness even more. And so that our life, even though sometimes there'll be some guardrails, a little bit of static or some crunch to continually invite us to refine our perception of our true resources and our true selves, that our life can come into harmony, where we're experiencing a predominant feeling of love and harmony in our relationships, both our romantic partnerships, our relationships with our children and our parents and our friends, and our relationship to the world at large through the avenue of our career, or that which we are contributing or sharing in energetically that brings us resources and money and living back. And also how we're engaging our home and the planet, and what kind of products we're buying, and what kind of food we're eating, and what kind of systems we're participating in, and who we are as a citizen in this great country, and as a global citizen too. And so our program is called Superhuman Training because to us, if we were to define what being a superhuman is, to us, a superhuman is someone who has awakened to the possibility of living a life that is aligned with your truth, that is in alignment with harmony and with your divine being or higher self, right? And to me, to just bring that down into out of the woo-woo rafters, the higher self or the divine being within us is simply an awareness that of oneness, of wholeness, that everything that I could possibly ever want to have or be, I already have and I already am and I'm already connected to, and that we are essentially always all connected. And that awareness is more true than the seeming awareness that we're separate. And to me, that's what superhuman is all about. And when you are living from that place, you have intuitive capacities and brilliance and access to quintessence.
And the flow state.
We're going to be talking a lot about what it's like to be in the flow state.
And how to playfully activate it. So I'm going to take a magical baton right from the ether right now, and I'm just going to say thank you, Colby, for that beautiful opening into this work. And now I'd like to kind of just go rewind back to the place where we were talking about the cultural mythologies that we've been gifted, and that they've been the lexicon that we've described our realities, and they've been the way that we've interacted verbally about our cultural story and our own personal story. And as we start to evaluate a lot of those nuances of the way that we communicate, and we start to break down some of those words and make them more practical for our growth and become words that we can really feel empowered by, there's going to be some things that we just kind of throw out, and then there's going to be other words that really help us anchor in this. And as we start to rewire our own internal story and work with each other on seeing a greater collective story where what we're valuing is slightly shifted from what we have been given, or that we accept our values that just are innate. They become inane. They become something that we look at and we recognize that the ship is only pointed in the direction of what we desire and value. And by shifting that rudder just a little bit, righting it, if you will, then we can change the story arc. We can change that ship's direction. And so just these little bitty hones that we can do to our own mind's eye, our own focus point with the way that we attract in our reality through our valuing, the more that we can create a world that works for everyone, starting with a world that works for us. So,
and that's what superhumans do. They write their own story.
That's right.
They're the captain of their own ship.
Well, and I think that the most imperative thing with that is these beautiful things that you've been, what were we calling them? It's just like these sentences, these words that we speak all the time, like the commonly used phrases that we just
that reflect our inherent values, our limited
values.
And so
we're starting to kind of break some of them down, but I really like the one of the sword is mightier than, or the pen is mightier than the sword.
Indeed.
And when we really look at how we write our spells, cast our spells, that if they become stories that we live into, and the more that we can recognize that our word is God, and the words that we use to describe ourselves, the words that we use to describe each other, and the words that we use to describe the world create the world that we are speaking about. And so it is in my mind, it's our duty to use extremely specific words to describe the way that we see ourselves and then in effect the world that we're creating.
It's our duty to take care of the duty.
It's our duty to take care of the
duty that is still here. Who got a poopy diaper on? You got a poopy diaper on?
Let's take the poopy diaper off.
The poopy diaper off.
Let's compost that sheet.
That's the word poopy. The word poopies. Obviously we realize, we can feel it sometimes when someone is speaking from a place of pain or trying to hurt or tear down another. But what we're not always realizing is that a lot of very commonly used phrases that actually in our perception is something that we say when we're feeling empathetic or when we're feeling apologetic, things that we value as something quote unquote good and right to say and do, is actually reflective of pain and limitation
and separation. And really that's the breaking point of all this is the separation.
Yeah.
Give us some examples.
And that the truth is that we only talk about what we care about. Right? And so the invitation is to really listen to yourself, right? And that's perhaps superhuman skill ability number one is the ability to listen to oneself when you speak, and also to truly listen to another, and to not just the words that they're saying, but what are they actually saying? What are they asking for? What are they expressing that they need as they speak? A lot of times we're just kind of waiting for someone to get done talking so that we can come back and start talking about what we care about, and then we're not getting that we don't care about what they're saying at all, even if we're pretending that we do. And so I have been developing a list of words and phrases that I'm either intentionally limiting, because sometimes there could be a use that I still feel is valid or in alignment
and
with.
resisting it might not help anyway.
Right? So it's either intentionally limited and or have eliminated. And I think another way to kind of a good way to think about this is with the diet. Lord knows it's been a journey to come out of resistance and into an alignment with a diet that actually works for me, and so intentionally limited, it's like, all right, there's chocolate cake. I know chocolate cake makes me gassy and farty and burpy and stomach achy.
Right.
And sometimes, that wonderful birthday party, or sometimes I can be like, you know what, I'm gonna choose to have a few bites of the cake. I'm gonna enjoy it. I'm gonna love it.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna take care of myself afterwards. But I certainly am not choosing to eat chocolate cake every day and to be in more in alignment. So the words that we're speaking is working in a very similar way.
Yes.
And so one of my favorite and perhaps most profound shifts is eliminating the word but. from my vocabulary. And a lot of times with the words that are eliminated, they're actually replaced. And so,
But what if I like asses? Because they're like my favorite.
well, but, not B-U-T-T.
Oh,
B-U-T.
you mean butt.
Yeah.
Okay. I was really afraid because I
y'all know
really
we
like
love-
a good ass.
we love the
Okay,
asses.
great. Thanks.
Me
Just
too.
clarification. Continue.
And we have quite lovely ones as well.
I love the ass butt.
B-U-T, but.
Okay.
But has been replaced with the word and. So when you think about those two words, and this is a perfect reflection or example of what new paradigm living, what being a superhuman is all about, that I am seeing, Christ said, I'm from North Carolina, so periodically I will be reaching into my Christian background.
Yes.
Because
Folklore
that was
of the Christian variety.
entryway into my spiritual awareness and psychic capacity.
And
so,
your sweet little North Carolina accent
That's
gets
right.
to come out. So in that, what did Christ say to you?
Christ said, if you look through a singular eye, you must look through a singular eye in order to behold the kingdom of heaven on earth. And my perception of kingdom of heaven is a world that works for everyone, right? This is the utopia, and it doesn't mean there's not still pain. It doesn't mean there's not still challenges, not still room for growth. However, we are at a place where we're collectively sharing our resources so much that there is a blatant opportunity for everyone to not only discover who they are, but to be welcomed to be that and to be valued as that, no matter what it is. And that everyone's value and role fits together like this grand mosaic.
Yes, it does.
Right? And so the word look through a singular eye, meaning that I perceive everything as one, and then the diversity or the difference in that is appreciated in the context of this perception of separation is here to allow us to experience and express all that we are, right? Without that perception of separation, it would just all be one big blob.
Yeah, there would be no soft versus hard.
right.
And I like both textures.
Right. So the perception of separation is very valuable to our souls. And the invitation is to simply discover its quintessent value, right? Its essential value, that it's simply a means to an end. And that it's always going to be apparent, but yet we're valuing it as that avenue for us to express this harmony, this fullness that we are, right? And so its value gets absorbed there. The word but is a divider. It's about separating, right? So its value is a reflection of separation and, however, unifies. So that's what I say about love, our concept of love, and what I call shadow love, which is a perception of love that's intimately linked and tied with pain. That, of course, is an illusion, or it's about being separate from love. So shadow love is going to divide and separate. You have to be like this, and this in order to love me. If you do this, then I don't love you anymore.
Right.
A lot of times in religion and in different religions and churches, it's like this, and this is we can love that, and then that, and that. Those people are going to hell or whatever.
Right.
And whereas true love, God's love or unconditional love or our own self-love or our love for our children, always unifies and liberates. And so you can really look at that. And the language of and but is a way that we are casting that spell, casting that investment all the time. Because you think about how many times a day do you say but? How many times a day are you doing that?
I really don't anymore. I'm just trying to think about it because my childhood was so filled with but. It was my mom saying things like, well, we could do that, but this is what will happen. Murphy's Law says this is what will happen.
Yeah.
It's a catch-22. You can't really, not going to win in that.
Yeah.
My parents would even say things like, well, we might as well drive around for an hour. We're not going to find a parking spot. And it was that sort of setting themselves up for the disappointment and that but that just separates us. It's such a simple way of flipping it around, but it takes so much diligence, and that's that duty component to that frontal lobe that wants to just continually use the past to predict the future and say, because I know my past is I don't win in this situation, I'm going to say I would really like to eat this, but it's not good for me, or I would really like that, but I don't have the money. That particular framework versus
I would love to hang
out
with you, but I don't have time.
Exactly. So flipping it around to say, I would really love to hang out with you, and I would like to make the time, or and
I'm not available
until next week. Something specific.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I really noticed is that I really noticed this the most when I used to be married, but
and
anything that is said before the but.
We need a buzzer for but so that we can get over it.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to buzz you if you...
Okay.
Yeah, okay. There you go. Anything said before the but... Yeah, exactly. Anything said before the but...
is rendered untrue.
As soon as you say the but.
Yeah,
you're negating it.
We're negating it, yes. Essentially, and the invitation that I really begin to notice and look at is like, well, if I'm going to say something and pretend like it has value and then dismiss it, then it actually doesn't have any value. And so a great example was that I would love to hang out with you, but I don't have time. Just that phrase. If we look at that, the only message that the person is getting is, I don't have time to hang out with you. And so it's not true if you don't want, you don't want to hang out, or you would make time, right? And so this replacing this diligence, right, which actually can be playful work, and our perception of hard work is another one that we're shifting.
Hard play.
The truth is, it's because the immediate results of this shift is so profound and fun and amazing, is that it doesn't even, for the return that you're getting for the quote unquote work, it's so great that it snowballs into that, and it doesn't even seem like work anymore. It's like,
it's a game.
What can it? So in this specific instance, it's here. Okay, Melissa has asked me to hang out, and I'm looking at my calendar, and I have no time to hang out with her until the end of next week. My truth is that I really do want to hang out with Melissa. So I'm going to say, I would love to hang out with you, and I'm available next Thursday. How does that work for you? You see, in that way, I'm still expressing what the reality is of my time, but I'm also being completely in alignment with my truth, and I'm giving Melissa an opportunity to respond in her truth in a way that is going to make things happen the soonest and be the actualization of what our real desire is, as opposed to perhaps my truth is that I didn't want to hang out with Melissa right now, for whatever reason. And then if I'm replacing it with and, I could say, my truth is that I'm not in a desire to hang out right now, and I appreciate your asking, and I'm sure it can work out at some point.
If you want that.
Right? And so,
well, here's some radical honesty. I'm doing a podcast with this mofo, and he's telling me he doesn't want to hang out with me right in front of you guys. How rude. Oh, wait. Don't take it personally. This is like step 7 along the line.
Right.
I'm not going to take it personally that he's springing this on me right now. But good job in being able to articulate your honesty. The key though in that is that you are articulating what's true. And sometimes what's true is hard to hear. And sometimes what's true for you is you actually don't have time because you're out of the country and we're not going to be able to get together for a while. And if you did want to make the space to continually have me in your life, then we could find other avenues for that. And so when someone poses a question to you, the ability for you to be in the present moment, and this is something I found with you that's really beautiful, is you actually do take a moment to receive that. You don't just jump on that and say yes or no, or what you feel like you have to say, and you don't allow the guilt to affect you of, this person isn't actually in alignment with my reality. I can find a tactful way to communicate that now versus setting us both up for very uncomfortable situations in the future. And I've seen that, and I really, really appreciate that. So that was kind of a segue to say.
Well, and it's the perfect segue, and thank you.
Perfect.
Because oftentimes our investment in shadow love, the reason why I would, say I'd love to hang out with you, but actually I really don't. We're kind of babysitting other people's feelings. We're
ideas
conditioned
of their feelings
to not want to cause harm, and that what our perception of love is I love you and I don't want you to hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to sacrifice my truth in order to placate you. And it's not really saving them from any kind of pain eventually, because if I say, I want to hang out, I'll get back to you, and then I never respond again,
that hurts them
then
more.
they're still experiencing the pain. And this is our condition to continue to invest in separation. We're not only being separate from the other person, but we're being separate from our truth, and separate from our self-care. And that there's a way that I can still say it's not in my truth right now to want to hang out with you, in a way that still invites connection and what's there, right? And the connection simply could be, I'm making it clear that I'm taking care of myself right now, and your invitation is to be able to discover what that's like for you, to take care of yourself. And that being truthful like that right away, and you can always, even if you're saying no, you can say no in a kind way, that the other person would really have to make up their own story if they're going to choose to get hurt. And they probably will.
Okay.
And that's okay. Yeah.
And that's the true thing of the guilt that we put into our reality all the time. That's sort of this thing that we were spoon-fed it as a very young child around all the interactions that we had with other kids and the adults around puppeting it. Now, honey, you have to share that. Honey, you have to do this. Say sorry for that. The placing of all these particular stories around babysitting other people's emotions and being really not aware of our own emotions. The idea of one of the aspects of what I think our greatest work that you and I do is listening to that inner voice like it was a child, like it's your own inner child. And being parents, the idea of listening to our children's inner voice and asking them questions as to uncover what is your truth. What is that yes? What is that no? And you know what? Whatever it is fine. That particular loop, that new cultural story, that we see that becoming the norm in just a couple of generations. It will be the norm, because these ones that are coming in, they've got like Teflon around them.
Yes,
and they are not accepting our BS old ways.
No bullshit.
They are okay with speaking, this is my truth. Yeah. And I think as we get more comfortable with this and we follow their lead and we listen more and more and more to our own inner child and our own inner voice, so it doesn't have to rage and scream and throw things inside of us or get us sick, so that we listen to it, but we listen to it all the time. We ask it questions so that it will lead us in the most efficient and graceful path. And sometimes it is going to say, absolutely not, I don't want to be around this person. And sometimes it will come out more curt. And yet you can still remedy those things afterwards and say, you know what, that was a little bit curt and it was a little bit short, and I'm recognizing that this was my truth. And wow, I found my truth. And that's a victory. And that's really what is going to be mirrored
in Jesus, my Savior.
The other that may, in their own head, have a story associated with how frank you were being, they get to have a ripple of, in the future, when they are pressed with that same feeling, they get to say, you know what? That feels really good to stand up and say no.
Right. And that could be superhuman power number 2 is taking responsibility for your own experience and acknowledging someone else when they're taking responsibility for their experience. And one of my favorite ways to do that even if Melissa said, I'm really not in alignment with some of the ways that you've been being lately, and I would prefer not to be around it. And I see the truth of you as this, and blah, blah, blah. So no matter how I feel about that, maybe perhaps I felt hurt or I felt rejected or whatever I feel, I'm owning that this is my feeling, this is my experience, and Melissa is simply taking care of herself. And so I could say, thank you for taking care of yourself. I will look at what's come up for me in your reflection, and I'll get to decide myself, am I feeling rejected because Melissa is reflecting a part of me that I really feel is true, but that I've not been being lately, and I'm sad about that in myself. And in that sadness, I have the awareness of how exactly I've been being that's not in my truth. Well, that's a huge gift for me, right? And she got to take care of herself, which automatically invited me to take care of myself. And that responsibility for one's experience frees us from taking responsibility for someone else's pain, especially when the truth of it is that we're not intentionally trying to cause pain, that we're simply holding space for another's potential experience of pain in a way that sees them through that, in the way that we're holding that space. So it's the that comes there. And that was circling us back to what it is to be a superhuman, and can we create a world that works for everyone? And that is, what do we make ourselves when we are beginning to speak in this way? So superhuman power number 1, listening. Superhuman power number 2, taking responsibility for our own experience and thanking others for when they're caring for them, for taking care of themselves. What are we making ourselves available to when we're living in that way? And as you were talking, you were like coming at it a little bit. You used the word efficiency and some things like that.
One of my favorite words.
Oh, we love it, efficiency. It's about energy, how much energy we have. And the way our energy is experienced in this 3D reality is our time, our attention, our focus, that then correlates into things like money and stuff like that. But really, our time is a very limited resource. And how much time are you spending processing hurt and being in drama and being distracted from what you really want to be doing because you're in all of that mess, right? And so, and how long have you been like looking back for the phone, like she said she wanted to hang out, and now I'm checking the phone again, or I'm waiting for it tomorrow, and all that's mental energy and that's literal focus energy that's being wasted.
It's your currency.
Yeah.
You have your currency of your attention.
Right.
And when you pay attention to something, then you are feeding it, you're paying for it. And so it's like you've got this giant carnival of life, this giant carnival experiences, and you're stuck playing the same arcade game over and over again because you keep putting money into it. It keeps giving you the same results over and over again. It's not giving you a whole experience of life because you're just playing that same game. And they say that, what is it, the insanity is trying the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. Well, there's this level of continuity that we can get in when we start playing a different game, and then we pay attention long enough that towards the things that are really feeding us and really working for us. And so what you were, I think, getting at with the idea of these layers of our superhuman abilities, we really have to listen. Key. Listen. Now, what else is here? What else is available that we can pay attention to? When I'm out of my rat race of my brain thinking about what I have to do tomorrow or in 10 minutes, or God, what I did yesterday, I can't believe I looked at that person that long and they saw me, whatever it is that I'm stuck in my head dealing with, that particular story, when it ceases and I can be listening wholly to this moment, then I find the sound of something beautiful and I feel the rhythm of my own heart, and I become aware of that palpable, visceral lucidity of the moment. And the more that we can be in reverence of that lucid moment, then we can be in the flow. And the more that we can be in the flow state, the more that genius can come through us. And the more that genius can come through us, the more we can be in reverence of what us actually is, the I that we are.
And all of a sudden, we're in a world that works for everyone. We're winning.
We won because we saw it.
Well, and I was just thinking of someone saying, we want universal health care. And the government says, okay, great. How are you going to pay for it? How are we going to pay for it? Well, I want a world that works for everyone. Okay, great. How are you going to pay for it? Well, the way we're going to pay for it is by taking our investment back from all of these patterns and all of these stories and all these myths that really are not bringing a good return. They're bad investments, really.
Very bad investments.
They're not bringing no profit. They're leak it out,
pouring it out.
And we're going to take I'm going to take that my money back,
my attention back, what I've paid for.
And I'm going to reinvest it in this up and coming stock over here. This is Facebook in 2000.
Facebook.
And begin to immediately see the return on the investment. And that is that's how we're doing it. And I love that you posed one of my most favorite questions is, what else is here?
What else is here?
And the only way that you can really ask that question is if you've already taken responsibility for what seems to be only here. Well, what's here is that I'm angry. Okay, great. Let's, feel that anger. What's that anger telling you? Well, it's telling me that I want the situation to be different. Okay, great. Well, what else is here? Is the solution already here in this space? Is your perception of what it would be like once the situation is different, is that already here? And it immediately brings that listening to a broader, more observing witness perspective. And in the work that we do, being aware of your witness, being aware of that which is noticing everything, noticing how you're feeling, noticing what you're looking at, noticing everything else that's there, you're already free once you're in the awareness of the witness, because the witness truly is that soul energy, or what we would call higher self. It's the one that is always there, always clear, always in the flow, always connected, holding space for us to have whatever transient emotional experience we're having. And the moment that you're doing that, right, the superhuman power number 3 is the awareness of the observer, awareness of the witness, awareness of the one that's noticing and holding space. We're already connected to that resource that is always here and always ours, and the resource is our capacity to assign value, our awareness of the one who values. So now I'm saying, what else is here? Well, here's this thing that's making me angry, and here's this thing over here that feels peaceful, and then I get to choose which one matters more. And I can take the nugget from what's making me angry, and I can merge it with what's bringing peace. And then all of a sudden I'm moving towards my peace, and I'm inviting whoever else is in the situation with me to go there too. So then the anger actually helped us to become more aware of a much better solution that was already in the space that we weren't even aware of what was there, because we thought we were doing one thing. And then all of a sudden, and you see, and that where the quintessent value of the anger or the upset becomes evident as a pathway to where we're putting our major value. And I know that was a little bit jumbled up, but we're going to be in the practice of it.
Well, yeah, I think that the great thing about what we're doing with this first episode is we're just really touching on a lot of broad topics, and then over the different episodes inside of this series, we're looking specifically at each one of these layers, and then we're going to have some very playful activities for how we can bring that into our daily practice. I love activities. I love breaking down in this first episode the lexicon that we use. There's such a beautiful world that is being created around activism. Well, that's cool. People want activism. Well, what are they actually, when we break down that word, what does that mean? It means activism, action. So when somebody says I'm an activist, or they are desiring to be an activist, and they're going and holding a sign, and they're saying no to something and resisting something, and they're picketing and promoting something different by speaking what they truly want, those things they're awesome. They're getting people together. They're combining the resources in the moment. I'm not attracted to them anymore myself. What I'm attracted to is being an activist in every moment of my life, being an active player in every moment of my life. And when we look at the overarching scope of what our work really is, it's in recognizing those patterns and those myths, stories that have been given to us, and recognizing them enough to dispel them, to demystify them, to allow them to be seen and then let go of, so that they no longer play an active role in our lives. Meaning we become the writer, director, storyteller of our reality. We remove ourselves from the game that we were really bought into, that we are somehow a pawn inside of this bigger story where other people have control of our lives, that them, the they out there, are the ones that are controlling all the money, all the resources, all the currency, and that we are somehow a victim of that story. So if we're rewiring all of our systems right now and we're looking at the core of this, it is in seeing that we are the active players of our reality, that when we can listen to what's fully present, we can see what in our body is a yes and is a no. We can move towards the active place in our life with grace and ease, and we know what those steps are. And so really, if we look at this whole wrap up of our work together with our superhuman training, and what we're hoping you guys embark on with us, is that we go through these layers and we look at real world problems, quote unquote. We look at how the world is being affected, and we trace it back to that same place of the separation. And we see that if the solution is always the same because the problem is always the same, then it's in the unification of our own self, the unification of our viewpoints, and then
shift in value.
The shift in values.
Hallelujah. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Can I get an amen?
A woman.
Amen.
A woman.
Amen.
A woman.
A woman. A person of God.
A human. A being.
A superhuman.
A superhuman. And so there is a perfect reason why we named this superhuman training. And you'll see that it's not superhero, because there is no need for a hero or a heroine in this story arc, because there is no villain. There, like Colby has said, in the future utopic state, a utopia that people can all be living in their bliss and in their freedom of expression, yes, there will still be pain, and there will still be challenges, and there will still be growth, and there will still be things that we overcome, but there is no villain.
Less suffering.
Pain, suffering
pain
is the key.
Pain is reality. Suffering is fantasy.
Suffering is your choice.
Right. And
so
it
pain
depends on our story.
Pain is inevitable in life. It is. And it's how we attach to it. And I love that we talked earlier about the shit and just letting the shit go. And the words that we use, they're just spewing shit sometimes, that verbal diarrhea. And really that our brain can be running in that pattern, and recognizing that everything composts and decays and becomes the soil for the new seeds to grow. And there will be no future forest of our dreams if we don't let this compost, if we don't let the old die and have reverence for it, because it's still a part of the cycle. And the greed, the anger, the resentment, all the things that we have felt in ourselves and then resisted in the masses and seen outside of ourselves and just pushed against, those stories are powerful and important, but it's about us seeing them and recognizing them, not running from them, burying our heads in the sand, but also not being led by them forever.
Yeah, and this is an invitation, and you guys, going along the journey with us of encountering the pain and the suffering and those ideas and reframing them, encountering them in a new way, demonstrating, well, what really happens if I am not resisting my pain and I'm taking full responsibility of what this feels like right now, and I'm feeling my despair or my anger or my frustration, and I'm feeling it all the way in a matter of a few moments, and moving into what is beyond it, what's more true than that, and in a way, we are following the old classic hero's journey that superhero has become all about the villain hero response. But in classic days, in Greek mythology, the hero's journey is really about reaching enlightenment or the godhood or Mount Olympus or being immortal, right? And all the challenges that the hero faces in order to know what his or her strengths are and what their true gifts are and how to use their godly power. Often in those stories, the hero was a demigod, half god, half human. And really, this is like an allegory of who we are and the journey that we're going on. And so there wasn't any real villains. There's simply tests and challenges to allow us to rub up against, to discover and realize who we really are, and to give us a game board to express and experiment with these gifts and abilities, these superhuman powers that we have. And so thank you for joining us on this journey. We're going to wrap up our first episode here. And we're so excited about doing this. It's been a long time coming, and I couldn't be more thrilled to be in this playful dance and to be offering my self-awareness and awakening accelerator coaching that I've been doing for many, many years now. And that's gotten a new look and a new format. And Melissa is doing more and more things with her. You say.
Oh, I love it. I love because usually you are so great at edifying me and articulating, and I also was sending you some telepathic things saying, you know what, I'd like to speak right now and say thank you for joining us and for being a part of this mission, because I think that that's really my most excited aspect of my mission on this planet, is getting people excited.
Yeah.
And so whether I'm doing it through storytelling, whether I'm doing it with my visual art, whether I'm producing an event, whether I am hosting a show, or whether I'm just walking down the street singing a song, I am here to take that spot inside of somebody that thinks that they are bored, thinks that they are maybe just a little bit too cynical to be saved at this point, and finding that spark inside them that was so on fire when they were a little kid, and then stoking it and blowing so
I'm
much.
stoked.
Oh yeah,
I'm
you are.
so
You
stoked.
were born stoked,
so
and you
stoked.
didn't let your fire dim. But if you're still alive on this planet and you have a heartbeat, then I know you have inspiration inside of you, and you have a gift to give. And the ones that have found us now, chances are you're already totally on your path and you know what you're here to bring. And maybe there's just some times that you feel a little bit alone in that, or maybe there's some times that you feel like you don't even necessarily have the words to describe what you're here to bring. And that's what I'm hoping that we'll be able to bring you guys with this, is a community, a unifying force, a call to action inside of the network of the people that are seeing this, hearing this, feeling this from the inside, and maybe we can start seeing it, hearing it, and feeling it from the outside. And wrapping back around to the very beginning when you said that you are really inspired by those visions of the future that we've been seeing, and then we recognize that the cultural myths that are being propelled through the visions of this dystopic future that so much money is going into in Hollywood, we want to be helping write new stories. And so by listening,
taking responsibility for experience.
Of course, in ourselves, that's our story. But now we've been doing that long enough that we found each other, and we found hundreds more. And we want that community worldwide to be producing these things. So we've created a worldwide production company, and it is called Admit One. Admit One, your ticket to the big show. What's the big show?
Admit that we're one.
Well, that's the deal. So when you give your ticket to the big show, when you enter into that circus tent in the sky that we call planet Earth, and you see it as this collaborative story that we're all stars of, then by giving your ticket in, you're admitting one. You're admitting that we're one. And my little theory and all that, and I know it's yours too, Colby, is that if we admit one, then we have already won. It's built into our language. WON. is the same as O-N-E. Won. We've won. So with that, we'd like to invite you to continually participate in this and send us your feedback, but send us your questions. Send us the things that are aching in you, and maybe we can find
And we would love to hear the superhuman tools that we provided in this episode, replacing the word but with and, being more clear about what your truth is, thanking someone else for taking care of themselves when they offer you a no, or inviting them to be more clear about their no's, putting that into practice. And if anyone has any great stories about how that positively impacted your reality or someone else's reality, we want to hear about that as well. And so we are going to close with a fun song.
I don't want to close. I'm a very open person.
We're gonna open the rest of the moment with a song, and we're gonna yes, yeah, yum this time.
Well, I think that the key would be really to show them in our first episode that one of the things that we do is we just channel songs all the time. And on our very first road trip, Colby and I realized something, and this song became a message for the rest of the world about what we realized. And then in each episode from this point forward, we're going to be creating an improv musical number about what we've experienced. So a little bit of poetry, a little bit of spoken word might happen.
Some channeling, some meditation.
Yes, we will always be doing a little meditation also, because Colby is a phenomenal channeler of meditations. And in the channeling of very serious, deep, powerful words, I do maybe the opposite. I am basically an improv Broadway musical all the time. So if you like to just get silly and sing songs about absolutely anything, that's maybe where we will be in a couple of episodes, is just creating an improv musical the whole time. Who knows? So let's give them our little song we made on our very first road trip.
Yes. Let's do it.
I'm a Jew. We gotta hum.
Pick it up. I'm a juicy nectar pot of yes, yay, and yum. I'm a juicy nectar pot of yes, yay, and yum. I'm a juicy nectar pot of yes, yay, and yum. And everything I see empowers me.
I think that'll be enough for today.
Okay.
Yeah, just because I feel like we're not ready to sing the second verse. I think
the second verse is to be continued.
They think that they get to help us write that, because everything we see empowers we is a part of the future. But for now, the words to that, if you want to sing it to yourself, because it's pretty addictive and it makes you feel really incredible to be that silly, and when you're on your own in the car singing really loud anyway, you might as well be super silly. I'm a juicy nectar pot
of yes, yay, and yum.
Yes, yay, and yum. I'm a juicy nectar pot of yes, yay, and yum. I am the yes, I am the yay, and I am yum.
And everything I see empowers me.
So in that, let's leave on that note. When I look at the world, whether it is something that I'm watching on Facebook and maybe I shouldn't have clicked on, or maybe it's just a friend that is having a hard time, maybe with me, how can I feel empowered by what I'm seeing? How can I walk through my day and see it as something that is empowering me versus being a victim of the reality that was created for me to be a victim of? Bullshit story. I'm going to let that one go.
We're empowered in our choice to value the contrast as an invitation to alignment of who we are and what our capacity is, our capacity to respond creatively to challenges. And so everything I see empowers me. If it's something challenging or triggering, I am still empowered in that, and that I'm welcoming that experience as an opportunity for me to see more clearly what else is here and who am I in this moment? So,
Yay! Well, thank you so much for joining us on our inaugural journey with Superhuman Training Program. And
we'll see you next week.
After we giggle and jump up and down and get very excited for the rest of the day, we know that we are going to be honing in on the next episode for you, and we will see you next week. Please, please, please continue to love yourself, hug each other, look each other deeper in the eye, and remember just how powerful you are.
And if you want more information about what we're doing, you can find this podcast on iTunes, also on YouTube, on our Facebook pages. And to find out more about the work that we're doing, go to melissaorion.com and colbycollins.com. And soon there will be
our Admit One production company, and you can even be a member there. So we'll be open to you coming in and joining the crew. And it's almost 11:11, which is my favorite time to get up and jump around and spin around and get ecstatic.
Jump around, spin around,
and get ecstatic.
Jump around, spin around, and get ecstatic. Jump around, spin around, and get ecstatic.
We love you. Thank you, and have a beautiful day.
Bye. Mwah.